In our top story, a law and order crisis in Alice Springs at the very time the government's trying to build support for an Indigenous voice to Parliament. Let's bring in our political editor, Andrew Clennell. And Andrew, Peter Dutton has been making the point about the need to look at the impact of people and Indigenous Australians on the ground and the detail of the proposed voice and what effect that might have on the lives of those First Nations people. And Marion Scrymgour, a Labor MP, member for Lingiari, has joined him on that front.
Yes, I think this is a big development, Kieran, and a big headache for Anthony Albanese as he seeks to convince people that the voice can make a difference. Because Marion Scrymgour is the member for Lingiari. She's a Labor MP. She's also an Indigenous MP, and she's given a radio interview this morning where she's essentially said, "I support the voice, but until we act on this Alice Springs problem, this crime problem, how can we even talk about it?" Now, she said that it is a Northern Territory government responsibility. They did change the law around this provision of alcohol off pub sites to communities. But we know that Peter Dutton's calling for federal intervention. And she, again, you have to listen to the whole exchange here with Neil Mitchell. I think it's worth a listen. I support the voice, she says, but how can we even talk about the voice at the moment?
The voice couldn't be further from, people's view up here. If anything, I've noticed a real, because people are under siege in their own homes, people that I know that might have been sympathetic to constitutional reform and the voice and looking at the referendum have become really frustrated because nothing's been done. So they've gone to the opposite thing of, well, why should we support the voice or this if we can't even get, police to protect me while I'm sleeping in my own home?
Well, do you, as a Labor member, do you support the voice?
Oh, look, absolutely. And I think it's probably unfinished business in this country. But I think that we can't have these conversations if there's all these issues that are impacting on communities like Alice Springs.
We can't have this conversation until these issues in places like Alice Springs are sorted out, she says. That puts added pressure on Anthony Albanese to stage some sort of federal intervention, even if it's the provision of federal police or other measures in the Northern Territory in relation to this matter, especially with the Northern Territory government not changing its policy. Well, Peter Dutton, he is saying this is a reason why there are issues in Indigenous affairs that are more important than having this advisory body, the voice. He says he's travelling to Alice Springs. He's up the ante on the whole Indigenous affairs issue this morning by inviting the Prime Minister to come with him.
It's completely unacceptable, and the Prime Minister should have been there by now, but he should go tomorrow, and I would be very happy to travel with him. I wrote to the Prime Minister, as you know, before Christmas, calling for a Royal Commission into Alice Springs and what was happening in the Northern Territory. I still haven't received a response to that letter.
Now, this is becoming quite interesting, this situation between Albanese and Dutton on this. It's clear that Anthony Albanese does not think Peter Dutton is acting with goodwill on this matter. He is saying there is plenty of detail out there, and he was out in the Breakfast TV saying that this morning.
That detail's been out there since July. It will simply be an advisory group that will be not above Parliament. Its advice doesn't have to be taken, but it does have to be heard. And you get better results when you actually listen to people and when you engage with them. And that's what the voice is about.
So it's just quite significant. I'm sure you'd agree, Kieran. Marion Scrymgour coming out there and saying deal with Alice Springs first. It's one thing for Jacinta Price to say it, Peter Dutton to say it, even community leaders to say it. But one of the Labor MPs you'd expect to be most strong in pushing forward the voice saying it. Well, it's quite interesting. And it's interesting to see someone on the ground in one of those communities versus, say, Linda Burney, who obviously has had so much to do with Aboriginal reconciliation but lives in inner city Sydney after all, Kieran.
Andrew, thank you.